In the steamy jungles of a faraway land, a superpower that had crushed empires found itself slowly sinking. It began not with grand declarations or massive invasions, but with quiet commitments and small steps. Each one seemed reasonable at the time. Each one pulled America deeper into a conflict it could neither win outright nor walk away from without cost. This is the story of how the United States got stuck in Vietnam. It started in the shadow of another empire's collapse. In May 1954, French forces at Dien Bien Phu surrendered after 56 days of siege. General Vo Nguyen Giap's Viet Minh troops had outmaneuvered and outlasted a colonial army equipped with modern weapons. France, exhausted after 8 years of war, withdrew from Indochina. The Geneva Accords that July split Vietnam at the 17th parallel. Ho Chi Minh's communists controlled the north. In the south, Ngo Dinh Diem took power with American support. Nationwide elections were promised within 2 years to unify the country. They never happened. Washington feared a communist victory. President Eisenhower had already warned of the domino theory. Lose Vietnam, and the rest of Southeast Asia might fall. So the United States sent military advisors. By 1960, more than 800 Americans were training South Vietnamese troops and conducting covert operations. The stakes felt clear in the Cold War: contain communism or watch it spread. But containment proved slippery. Diem's government grew corrupt and repressive. Buddhist monks burned themselves alive in protest. Rural support for the Viet Cong guerrillas swelled. In November 1963, South Vietnamese generals with tacit American approval overthrew and killed Diem. 3 weeks later, President Kennedy was assassinated. Lyndon Johnson inherited a fragile ally in a growing insurgency. He was determined not to be the president who lost Vietnam. In August 1964, 2 U.S. destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin reported attacks by North Vietnamese patrol boats. The second incident, it later turned out, never happened. Yet Johnson seized the moment. Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin resolution almost unanimously. It gave the president broad power to use military force without a formal declaration of war. The door to escalation stood wide open. By early 1965, Johnson walked through it. In February, Viet Cong forces attacked a U.S. base at Pleiku. Johnson ordered retaliatory strikes. Operation Rolling Thunder began in March. Sustained bombing of North Vietnam meant to break Hanoi's will. That same month, the first American combat troops, 3,500 Marines, waded ashore at Da Nang. Their mission was to protect the air base. Within months, the mission changed. General William Westmoreland, commander of U.S. forces, asked for more troops to take the offensive. Johnson approved. By the end of 1965, nearly 200,000 Americans were in Vietnam. The war had become American. Westmoreland's strategy was simple and brutal: search and destroy. Use superior firepower, helicopters, and artillery to hunt Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army units. Kill enough of the enemy and they would quit. In November 1965, the 1st Cavalry Division clashed with regular North Vietnamese troops in the Ia Drang Valley. It was the first major battle between American and enemy forces. Both sides claimed victory. American commanders pointed to a 10-to-1 kill ratio, but the North Vietnamese had shown they could stand and fight in large numbers. They learned American weaknesses too. Rely on air support and artillery and you become predictable. The body count metric became official policy. Progress would be measured in corpses. Yet the enemy replaced its losses with fresh recruits from the north via the Ho Chi Minh Trail through Laos and Cambodia. The trail was a network of jungle paths, supply depots, and bicycle porters. American bombs could not close it. The war expanded in every direction. Troop numbers climbed past 400,000 by the end of 1966. B-52 bombers pounded suspected enemy positions. Agent Orange stripped the jungle canopy. Free fire zones turned villages into targets. In the cities, South Vietnamese leaders rotated through coups and corruption. The Viet Cong melted into the population by day and struck by night. American soldiers patrolled rice paddies and triple canopy jungle, never sure who was friend or foe. The enemy fought a war of attrition on its own terms. Ambushes, booby traps, hit-and-run raids. Every small victory for the United States came at a price in blood and political capital back home. Then came Tet. On January 30, 1968, during the Lunar New Year truce, the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese launched coordinated attacks on more than 100 cities and towns across South Vietnam. Mortar rounds fell on Saigon. Sappers breached the walls of the U.S. Embassy compound. Fighting raged in Hue for weeks. The offensive was a military disaster for the Communists. They suffered staggering casualties, perhaps 40,000 dead, and failed to spark a general uprising in the South. Yet Tet changed everything. Television images of the embassy battle and street fighting in Saigon shocked the American public. For months, generals had assured them the enemy was on the ropes. Now it seemed the war had no end in sight. Public support collapsed. In March, President Johnson announced he would not seek re-election. He also halted most bombing of North Vietnam and opened peace talks in Paris. Richard Nixon entered the White House in January 1969, promising an honorable exit. His plan was Vietnamization, shift combat responsibility to South Vietnamese forces while withdrawing American troops. Secretly, Nixon expanded the war. In March 1969, he ordered the bombing of Cambodia to disrupt supply lines. The operation remained hidden from Congress and the public for over a year. Troop levels peaked at 543,000 in April 1969, but the withdrawals began. By late 1970, the number had dropped below 400,000. Nixon's strategy bought time. In April 1970, American and South Vietnamese forces invaded Cambodia. The move sparked massive protests at home. At Kent State University in Ohio, National Guardsmen killed 4 students. The war had come home. North Vietnam tested the new reality in 1972. During the Easter Offensive, its troops poured across the demilitarized zone. South Vietnamese units crumble in places. Nixon responded with massive air power, Operation Linebacker. B-52s struck Hanoi and Haiphong. North Vietnamese fight back with SAM-2 missiles and MiG-21 planes. America Air Power lost 81 planes, 34 of them are B-52. The U.S. Navy also planned mines choke North Vietnamese ports. The North Vietnamese offensive was being stalled temporarily. Both sides returned to the negotiating table in Paris. In January 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed. The United States agreed to withdraw all remaining troops within 60 days. North Vietnam kept its forces in the south. A ceasefire was declared. Prisoners of war would return. South Vietnam's President Nguyen Van Thu protested, but Nixon promised continued aid and, if needed, renewed bombing. The last American combat troops left in March 1973. For the United States, the war was over. For Vietnam, it was not. Fighting resumed almost immediately. Without American air support or ground troops, South Vietnam's army faced a better supplied enemy. Congress cut aid. In March 1975, North Vietnamese forces launched a final offensive. Cities fell like dominoes. President Gerald Ford asked Congress for emergency help. It refused. On April 30, 1975, North Vietnamese tanks crashed through the gates of the presidential palace in Saigon. Helicopters lifted the last Americans from the embassy roof. The war that had begun with advisors and limited commitments ended with panic and defeat. More than 58,000 Americans died in Vietnam. Another 300,000 were wounded. The financial cost exceeded $140 billion. Vietnamese deaths, North and South, military and civilian, reached into the millions. Laos and Cambodia were drawn into the fighting and suffered their own catastrophes. The dominoes did not fall across Southeast Asia as feared. But America's image of itself as an invincible force for good had cracked. The war exposed the limits of technology against determined nationalism. It revealed the dangers of incremental decisions made without clear exit strategies. It showed how intelligence failures, optimistic body counts, and domestic political pressure could trap even the strongest nation in a conflict no one had intended to fight for long. In the end, the superpower did not lose because it lacked courage or firepower. It lost because it misread the nature of the enemy and the land. The Vietnamese had fought foreign powers for centuries. They were willing to absorb any punishment to unify their country. America, for all its might, was not. The jungle did not surrender. The trail kept moving, and the war that was supposed to be quick became the one that would not let go.